it needed was for someone to come belting down the wing, like Marcus Rashford, to give it the higher profile, if you like, and he did it.
Yeah, and
it you
he did, and it was.
You add to that the
no, go on.
Crass statement by the Work and Pensions Secretary this morning, trying to be trying to tweet against Marcus Rashford. And all the
to raise coffee you're talking about.
And so I'm very pleased because one thing's for sure, we'll never go back again. This will always now be the case. There will always be free school meals for kids in the summer holidays. I'm a free school meal kid. I'm the only education secretary who was ever raised on free school meals. And I was raised right from infants to the time I left school. And the difficulty.
That's interesting. You think it'll. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on.
The difficulty for my mother was always the holidays. How did she feed me and my sister? Because she was in terrible poverty, and free school meals were the best thing that ever happened to me and my sister.
So you think, even though we're being told by the government this is a one-off because of the coronavirus summer, you say nonsense. It is bound to continue.
Once the toothpaste is out of the tube, as someone once said, it'll be impossible to get it back in again. Because you've got a scheme and you've got a system. I mean, the only thing I hope is that, they don't replace school kitchens with a voucher system permanently, because I think that would be a mistake, because, it's very important. These are free, healthy school meals and they're being administered in schools. Without free school meals, kids being... having a big sign on their head saying, I'm a free school meal kid. That's what we've spent a lot of time ensuring didn't happen. I think it's there for good now.
And let's talk a little bit about the shame that is sometimes attached to poverty, because what Marcus Rashford has done as much as anything else is tell anyone who feels ashamed that great footballers have been through what they're going through and they shouldn't feel ashamed.
Well, that's really important. I tell the story in my childhood memoir, available at all good bookshops, as they say. We had a well-meaning teacher. I was the only free school meal kid in my class, and we had a very well-meaning teacher. He didn't do it deliberately, but every Monday morning, he would call out our names in the class in alphabetical order to bring their money to the front and put it on the desk in front of him. And every week, I had to go through the stigma of when he shouted my name, saying, "Free, sir." And I don't know why. I mean, kids just are sensitive to these things because you're different as well. And this guy wasn't doing it deliberately, but it
clumsy.
Increased the stigma by having to, say I was a free school meal kid. Some schools we were hearing about when I was education secretary where schools tried very hard to stop this, but there was some versions of a kind of voucher coin system being introduced, and the free school meal kids would have to queue up separately. So once again, so that's part of how you can organise so that these kids are not highlighted. But for Marcus Rashford to say that, would have lifted the morale of lots of kids. 15% of children get free school meals, so it's not an insignificant number.
And can I ask you, you must reflect, going back to the Blair years and beyond, every government that's come since, you must reflect on how, as a nation, we just haven't been able to crack child poverty, even working family poverty in many cases. We just haven't been able to crack it, have we?
Well, we did more than ever been done before. 1.3 million out of abject poverty, 1.1 million out of relative poverty. We spread free school meals. I mean, by the time we finished in government, free school meals were available to all primary school pupils on a phased basis, because there is such a small margin between the child whose parents don't qualify and the child whose parents do. And there's such a lot of evidence that giving a child a healthy meal at lunchtime, and the introduction of breakfast clubs, which started under us as well. So no, we've gone backwards through the age of austerity, through all the things that Michael Marmot, the great epidemiologist, has talked about, of these obscene health inequalities that have persisted into the 21st century.
What do you think? Well, there isn't one answer, of course, but what do you think the answer is for any government to build on the kinds of things you've described and to just, we're about to hit a bit of a wall, aren't we, when it comes to jobs and poverty?
Well,
probably in
one practical and one kind of machinery of government thing, as we've been listening rather amazingly to a machinery of government change in the middle of all this with DFID and the Foreign Office. The one practical thing is don't cut people's benefits by the enormous amount they were cut from 2010. George Osborne announced when the coalition came in that whereas under all previous governments, including Mrs Thatcher, benefits were raised by a kind of formula that took account of the cost of living and average wages, they were frozen. And they were frozen for years. And that means that since 2010, the poorest have gone backwards. So that's one practical thing. Don't do that. Restore that money, which not even Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party was promising to do in 2017, incidentally. Changed a bit by 2019. The second thing is put the Prime Minister in charge of a cross-government committee to tackle health inequalities, because the strange thing about them is that they're generally nothing to do with health. They're to do with education. They're to do with housing. They're to do with benefits, the things that we were just talking about. And unless you have someone like the Prime Minister determined to kind of push this issue on, to say, right, here's a 10-year plan. By the end of this 10 years, we'd have narrowed obscene health inequalities, focusing all government departments on it. You're not going to do it by decompartmentalising the issue and focusing it just on the Department of Health.
And